Hello, everybody. Let's talk Broncos. Friday edition, 4th of July edition. Yeah, you can tell it's 4th of July because I forgot to make sure my mic was on the right thing. Get that flipped over. There we go. That's probably going to sound a lot better all of a sudden. Quick Friday stream for you guys. I didn't want to leave you hanging from Monday till Monday. I always hate doing that. So hopping on, got a fun, I don't know, little patriotic themed show for you guys here, talking about what Broncos belong on, the all-time Denver Broncos Mount Rushmore. And then I've got some more niche ones because I didn't think that'd be a whole show. Wanted to I don't know, make sure I wasn't cutting anybody short coming on here talking about four people and then logging off. That felt half-assed to me. So I've got a few different topics here. I think we should save maybe the big one for last. Who are the four all-time most iconic / greatest Broncos of all time. Feels like maybe we save that for a second. Already got Ty in the comment section here saying Champ Bailey already. How do we normally do this? Do we do this the classic way? Is it block? I don't think we do block normally. I think Mario changed what we normally do here. Oof, I'll go with that. I can't remember. I'll have to look back at one of our old videos. Champ Bailey, no question, best corner of all time. Ty says, if we were doing players only, I think there's a very good chance he makes this list. But I'm going all Broncos. I'm going all Broncos, not just players. And when you go there, I don't think Champ Bailey quite makes it, although he would certainly be an honorable mention. All-time great, no doubts about it. So yeah, let me just get into this now. First topic I have here. Sorry, it's all on my notes app in my phone as I was enjoying this 4th of July. By the way, really quick, I'll say, I hope all our listeners are having a great 4th of July weekend. Hope you're spending some time with family or friends or outside or doing something fun. Good time to celebrate something or rather. And then if you want to comment, like the stream, that always supports us. Super chats, all that stuff, hugely helpful for us as a baby media company here. All right, so into the Mount Rushmores. Let's talk some sleepers for fantasy. Fantasy drafts are probably about a month out, but I think people are starting to do their work right now on that, trying to figure out, who do I maybe want to target here. If you're in a league with a lot of Broncos people, I'd say all these guys are going to be overdrafted. Sorry, let me get some position rankings out so I can reference them. The first one that comes to mind for me, frankly, is Audric Estime. I don't think anyone's going to be Mount Rushmore, by the way. There's 4 faces on there, so all these will be groups of 4. Mount Rushmore also not necessarily ranked 1 through 4. You got George Washington on the left. I believe Abraham Lincoln on the far right. It's not even chronologically ranked. So just, it's just four great options. A tier in and of themselves is the idea here. Per Fantasy Pros, we've got Estime going as running back 66. That's right between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Tank Bigsby, who I drafted last year and made me look like a fool. Was absolutely terrible as a rookie, and I'm expecting damn near nothing out of him this time around. Audric Estime, I think it's more likely than not. And maybe it's 55-45, maybe it's 60-40. But I think it's more likely than not that by, I don't know, the end of October, he's getting the majority of the snaps in this backfield. And you talk about Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is at 29. So like Jaleel McLaughlin's ahead of Estime as well. And I wouldn't take McLaughlin. And I'm a big McLaughlin supporter, but I think he can be great within like a very a well-defined role, which is like good, kind of the Philip Lindsay role with a little more receiving ability. I don't think he's an all-around back. Also, his body limits you from how many touches you want to give him, just because you can't stand up to that much NFL contact. But yeah, you got again, just for comparison here, this is crazy. Rico Dowdle. I know who he plays for. I'm not even going to mention the team to underscore that. I'm sure plenty of our listeners right now don't know who the hell Rico Dowdle is. He's not a rookie, but they don't know who Rico Dowdle is and who he plays for. This guy is ranked 20 spots ahead of Audric Estime per Fantasy Pros. Again, not gospel, but I would say Audric Estime is being wildly underrated right now. That is option number one for me. Option two, this is maybe better if you're in a league that's going to demand a lot of quarterback usage. But I think Bo Nix is another guy here. It's easy to go with the rookies, but I think he's being severely overrated here at QB 30. For example, Bryce Young, who I think was like objectively bad, is at QB 27. Russell Wilson, who I think is very unlikely to start 10 games this year, given the Justin Fields of it all, is at 28. I don't get it. I guess a lot of these other guys ahead of him make sense, but I don't know. I think he's going to be productive. Sean Payton made Teddy Bridgewater like a very viable fantasy football quarterback, and Taysom Hill an annual waiver ad for anybody's team. I think that Bo Nix, even if the product on the field's not that good, and it's something Brees talked about on our show, like, hey, Sean Payton's this offensive genius. Where's the offensive genius happening? I think so much of it was limited by Russell Wilson. You watch back the Broncos 2023 season, and it is shocking how limited the menu is that they're pulling from on their passing plays and on their passing game concepts. It doesn't look like any Sean Payton offense I've ever seen before in my life. Like, I don't know how many times they called stick last year, which is like a hallmark Sean Payton concept. I don't think you see it barely any. It's because so many of these quick game concepts that like Sean Payton made his money with are things that Russell Wilson couldn't do at all. Broncos were, I believe, last in the league, but they were definitely bottom five in terms of pass attempts that occurred within 2.5 seconds of the snap. Like, this guy was holding the ball a long time. Quick game was unusable. The only short passes in this offense were checkdowns, which were the result of the quarterback not being able to read out the field. So point being, I'm not that overly concerned by what we saw from the offense last year. I think the offense is frankly better this year outside of the quarterback position. And then you're going to get, I think, a quarterback who knows if he's going to be the answer. You know, none of us know. We're all hopeful. And I'm not trying to poo-poo anybody's prayer. All these rookies, who knows, right? But I think it'd be pretty surprising if he's not able to like competently call the shots of an NFL offense, or like, you know, point and shoot with Sean Payton pointing for him. I'd be pretty surprised if Nix isn't able to do that. And then also he's a solid runner. I don't think they're going to have that much designed run QB stuff, but around the goal line, I think he'll definitely be used. And if he gets 3 rushing touchdowns this year, that is a good bit of fluff there. I don't think he's one of your main 2 quarterbacks, but if you're in like a 2 quarterback league, and I'm in a league with Mario, our altitude adjustment host, and this guy hoards quarterbacks like nobody's business, and then he tries to rake you over the coals. He's holding on for Davis Mills for 3 years, you know, as a backup, just so that if CJ Stroud gets injured, he can demand a 3rd round pick for Davis Mills, even though he doesn't. It's ridiculous. Point being, if you're in one of these 2 QB leagues where quarterbacks are actually scarce, I think Nix is a money selection. God, I need to dial up my tempo here. Marvin Mims is another one. Joey's buying all the stock. I haven't been as enthusiastic on it, just because honestly, I think a lot of it is I got burned by Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and plenty other Broncos wide receiver draft picks for forecasting like improved development. when development's not linear in the NFL, and these guys don't always improve. And I do think there's some big holes in Mims' game that he needs to improve to show he can be, solid down to down receiver. That said, I do think Mims is being really underdrafted here. I think there's a good chance he's the Broncos wide receiver 1, all said and done at season's end. Courtland Sutton should be drafted ahead of him. But I don't know if the gap should be that wide there. I do wonder, like Courtland Sutton had in terms of production for him, one of the best seasons of his career last year, far and away. It's like that in 2019 are the only years in the discussion, I'd say. And I think a lot of that, and Joey pushed back on this idea, but I believe a lot of that is the style of quarterback play. Like Russell Wilson was the guy who was going to throw the ball up and ask Courtland Sutton to go up there and get it. And Sutton did that a lot. Credit to Sutton for that. Bo Nix, from what I saw on his Oregon tape, I think he was way too quick to settle for the conservative, safe answer in the offense. And yes, the offense was an inherently conservative offense that kept the pass plays close to the line of scrimmage. But I think Nix exacerbated that. I think there's plenty of instances over his tape where there are chances to be more aggressive than he was being, and oftentimes he passed him up. Point being, I don't know how many times he's going to just be like, hey, Court, go up and get this one for me. I don't think that's necessarily his style. And you've got Courtland Sutton, who's being drafted, at 42, Xavier Worthy right there. Why is Xavier Worthy ahead of Rome Odunze? What the hell? God, if that's real. And Rome Odunze is with Jamison Williams and Jackson Smith. Okay, if this is what I'm – okay, Rome Odunze should be way, way higher. That's a sidebar. That's unnecessary. But I look at Xavier Worthy. I look at Jamison Williams. These guys ranked right next to Courtland Sutton. Why shouldn't Marvin Mims be there? Like Xavier Worthy, people were like, how could you let the Chiefs get this guy? He's not offering the Chiefs anything new. They already had Hollywood Brown, who's a better proven NFL speed threat. He's going to be fast and go downfield, but there's a reason why, despite even after he set that record-breaking 40, most draft nicks were like, yeah, this is a third-round talent, fourth-round talent. And they took him in the first. I don't have a problem with the Chiefs. As someone who's it's in my best interest that the Broncos do well and the Chiefs do poorly. Zero problems with the Chiefs trading up to draft Xavier Worthy. I've seen so much. God, Buffalo. Oh, please let the Chiefs spend a first-round pick on a third-round talent because he ran fast against a stopwatch in underwear. Please. If the Chiefs do more of that, great news for Broncos fans. Sorry, I'm going off on these tangents. But Xavier Worthy in this tier, Jamison Williams, who I think was very exciting on the stretch for Detroit last year, but who can say he's shown that much more than Marvin Mims? Brian Thomas Jr. in this range, questionably. Curtis Samuel, Jerry Jeudy in this range, Jahan Dotson. I would bet on Khalil Shakir. Sorry, not Khalil Shakir. Sorry, I was looking at the Buffalo receivers. I bet on Marvin Mims. Excuse me. I bet on Marvin Mims. I think he's just going to be a solid, productive receiver. I don't think the gap between him and Courtland's going to be that wide. Again, just because of the stylistic considerations. Yeah, I would absolutely go with Mims. You look at Joey said it, and I think our most recent show, previewing the wide receivers, talking about how I saw how Bo Nix set Troy Franklin up to just like catch that ball and run for a bunch of extra yardage. Why isn't he going to do that with Marvin Mims too? He totally is. He's going to be doing that exact same thing. You can't really do that same thing with Court. And I do think it's going to, again, not those downfield bombs, more underneath run with it stuff. That's two ways the offense is kind of moving away from Court and towards Mims. And so I don't think the gap there is quite justified. Where's Lucas Kroll with tight ends? He's probably going to be my fourth here, but let me make sure he's not being taken wildly too early. Tight end 76. Darren Waller, who retired, is being drafted ahead of this guy. Yeah, he excuse me, he's underrated. God, I need some water. Excuse me, everybody. Unprofessional of me, but I'm in Southern Colorado. It is dry as hell right now, and I'm yelling. I'm being animated, so I'm gonna need the water every here and there, which sucks on a solo show. I can't do it while Joey and Bree are talking. But anyways, back to my point. Tight end 76. If you're in a 10-man league, I feel is standard 10, 12. But even if we say you're in a 12-man league, this guy would be, I mean, he's definitely not getting drafted. He's a tight end 7 in a 12-man league. That's ridiculous. I don't think he's going to be overly productive. I wouldn't draft him, but you're looking for a waiver guy. If you can add a guy cheap, again, maybe it's better for a dynasty league. But I think there's a very good chance he beats out Troutman. It kind of happened down the stretch we saw. And Troutman was wildly unproductive as a tight end for the Denver Broncos. I put out the stat in a recent article listing off all the no-name tight ends that had more receiving yards per game. Like AJ Derby is the one that jumps into mind because he was so far ahead of him. But okay. So Lucas Kroll last year, right? Barely played at all. He played, let me get exact numbers on this. He played 166 offensive snaps. Adam Troutman, for the sake of comparison, played 755. Rough math, 5 times more. It's a little less than that, but 5 times more. Kroll has 100 receiving yards on the season, or 95. Troutman's at 204. So really twice as many receiving yards, 5 times as many snaps, 4 times as many targets as well, if you even want to just zero in on targets. I think that was telling. The fact that down the stretch, it was so far on Kroll. Really quick. Hi, Paul. Appreciate the support. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate everyone in the comment section. I don't think Troutman's going to be productive. Yes, Russell Wilson dragged those numbers down by I talked about how he couldn't hit quick game. No secret to anybody. Russ can't hit the middle of the field. Where are a lot of tight end route concepts? Short and intermediate, over the middle of the field, right? There's not many slot fades coming from the tight end position that are going to be attacking the deep boundary. That's pretty rare from the tight end position, especially if we're talking about an Adam Troutman. So it was definitely dragged down by Russ. And then you see Stidham come in as Kroll is getting more snaps, and that's going to help him near the production. Sorry, I bumped my mic there. Nonetheless, the guy started 2 games and he had half of Adam Troutman's production. And again, he had a fifth of his snaps, a quarter of his snaps, and that much production. That's the tight end I would bet on for the Broncos, honestly, or Greg Dulcich. Shoot, I've been hyping up Dulcich. It's so easy to forget about him because of his health. Whoa, he's tight end 37. Okay, never mind. That is, so stay away from that. That is some stinky cheese. That's bait. No, thank you. Okay, first Mount Rushmore down. Took me 20 minutes. Wow, that was not the plan. Okay, these are going to be a lot faster. Maybe you cared about the fantasy inside. I think the rest of these can be quicker. Jersey investments. All right. If you're a Broncos fan, you want to get a jersey. You don't want to end up like me, where you got some Bradley Roby and Shane Ray jerseys hanging up in your closet. You don't want to go that route, or Bradley Chubb. So who are the best jersey investments on the current Denver Broncos? Okay. 1 with a bullet, easy. Everybody's thinking it. Patrick Surtain. Elite corner, probably the best in the league. Maybe he could leave. That's the risk here. Contract is coming up. I would be stunned if the Broncos let him walk. I think they'll franchise tag him. They'll pay him all the money in the world. I would be very surprised if he's not a Bronco for not only the second contract, but the majority of like that second contract as it plays out. I think he's going to be in Denver for a good long time. And then even if/when he leaves, I think it's going to be a Vaughn situation where he's leaving, or a Champ situation, maybe more comparable because, maybe he doesn't have the Super Bowl stuff. But walking away, a franchise legend, I don't think anyone looks at a Champ Bailey jersey and is like, oh, look at this guy. I think it's a great investment. Okay. Number 2, Quinn Miners. I think he's the second best player on the team. He's also young. He's also likely to be part of the next great version of the Denver Broncos, which is valuable, in my opinion. Also has a contract situation that's concerning. I think it's more likely that he leaves than Surtain leaves, although I think both are pretty unlikely. But again, this guy's the face of the franchise, and he's just like cool. He's got the gut thing, or the belly thing, excuse me. He's a fan favorite. Just an absolute road great, just nasty player. And I think offensive line jerseys always have like a little more, I don't know if they're like cool. I don't think they look extra cool, the 77, but 77, good number. And I don't know. I think they're just a good, I don't know. It shows you're like a diehard fan. Like I've seen some Tom Nalen jersey or Ryan Clady. You see a Ryan Clady jersey and it's like, oh, like they're legit. So I think that one deserves to be ranked high. Marvin Mims, I'm not going to dive that much deeper on that one. A lot of what I said rings true here. The scary thing there is we just have seen so very little of him. Actually, you know what? For that, I'm going to sub him out. Never mind. He's the 5th. He doesn't make it on Mount Rushmore. Forget I even said Marvin Mims. PJ Locke. I just thought of this one. It wasn't part of my pre-show planning, but I thought about it, and I think he's better than Mims. That 6 is an awesome number. It's like a really deep cut. He's under contract now, so he's got some roster security. He's probably not immediately gone. That is the gamble you're making, though. It's a big gamble. But if it pays off and he's like the next starting safety for a while, I think it could be cool. Like a teacher. Honestly, Marvin Mims is probably better now that I start talking about the investment of it all. Okay, Mims is better, but honorable mention to PJ Locke. Both those guys, I think are cool. Zach Allen would be my 3 spot, as those two vie it out for number 4. This is a player that's improved year over year. I think he's the best player in the Broncos front 7, which is like you got Surtain on the back end, Zach Allen on the front end. He's maybe the second best defensive player. And again, is the guy that's continuously improved throughout his career. I think it's likely we haven't seen the best version of Zach Allen yet. So that's a positive. They're also very financially committed to him. So he'll be around for a while. So, avoiding some of the Shane Ray, Bradley Robiness of some of these other younger picks. He's stable. He's locked in, and he's just a dang good player and still has some untapped potential. So also 99, good looking jersey number, I would argue. So that one deserves to be there, in my opinion. What else we got here? Let's do this. Players I'm excited to see at camp. Top 2 are Javonte Williams and Caden Stearns. Javonte is going to be really hard. It's something Joey's mentioned a lot on our show. Going to be very hard to get like any serious takeaways on what Javonte Williams looks like at training camp. His style is so defined by physicality. And even when they're allowing them to hit at training camp, it is an incredibly nerfed version of physicality. I don't think we're going to get a good read on that or a super good read on that, but I do think we can learn something. And maybe it is just he looks a lot more decisive as a runner. The vision, he's making the right reads in terms of his vision much more often. Because that's another answer. If he's not going to be the same athlete he was pre-knee injury, I think he can still be an effective back. It's just going to be based on, how much can he develop the more refined elements of his game or the more technical elements of his game. Can he get that vision dialed in? more, because he's such a great tackle breaker. That's what was cleaning up his rookie year. He frequently is running into the wrong hole all throughout his rookie year. But it's like, okay, I'm just going to carry guys for 4 yards. So yeah, I got hit in the backfield, but it's still a 4-yard gain and a positive play. So who cares? If that vision comes along, you don't need him to be the otherworldly athlete he was pre-injury. Ideal world, you see both of these things develop. And then the Broncos really have, I would say, a special running back. I wouldn't bet on that reality, but I do think it's plausible. So that's one. Caden Stearns, I think he's the best safety on this team if the knee isn't a thing. Truly, if not for, and I think I've been maybe the most down on him throughout this off season on the show, which I hate to do because he was an amazing guest on the show. Could not be more affable, more generous with his time with us again as a show that was much smaller then than we were now even. And not to say I recognize we're small. But it was 2 years ago, I think, or no, it was last year, but still we were 10th of the size, not even a 10th of the size of what we are now, and could not have been more generous with his time, with his willingness to answer questions and really get into some more interesting topics rather than just give us the boilerplate, whatever. So I'm a big fan of him. I also think he's an immense talent. I said it for years on the show prior to the injury. I mean, without the injury, I'd still believe it, that he was the Justin Simmons replacement in waiting. Mental ability, physical athleticism. I told the story that, this was when I was on the beat. Excuse me. I had it very well sourced that Justin Simmons was floored by Caden Stearns' football IQ. That Justin Simmons was like, even with all the Broncos have been a revolving door beyond quarterback, for the past several years. And even with all these guys Justin Simmons has seen come through the Broncos defense, he was like, man, Caden Stearns processes it differently. The way he views it is quarterback-like. Was the verbiage that was quoted from Justin to me. And again, I strongly believe this source. Point being, and then on RAS, he's like a 9.5 guy. Only problem is this injury. And it is more often than not, it's like a career ender. At least in the sense that maybe you stay in the NFL, but you are just so different from what you were before. You were a starter before and you are a backup now. Victor Cruz, is Simmons picked up yet? No, which is very surprising to me. But Victor Cruz is the sample I'll always cite. So I don't think the average NFL fan is tracking this sort of injury. But this is a guy that was one of the 10 best receivers in the sport and vanished all of a sudden. It's not like he had some slow decline, like even an Odell, right? I remember his Browns years, and then he had the injury with the Rams, and Ravens wasn't quite the same. Like there's the drop off. Victor Cruz went from the top of the NFL to out of the NFL. And it was the patellar tendon. Like it's scary business. We've seen offensive linemen recover from it okay. But that's the asks of linemen are very different from the asks of the safety, especially in terms of what are we demanding? That's amazing. I muted myself in this format. I somehow unplugged my mic, which my mic still appears plugged in. Whatever. We'll do it live. Anyway, I think Caden Stearns checks every box. And it's why I'm so excited to see what does he look like off this injury. Because if he's anything like the old Caden Stearns, which again, the medical techniques or whatever are getting better by the day. I don't know enough about medicine, but I know 15 years ago, the ACL tear was a death knell, much like I'm talking about the patellar tendon now. And then all of a sudden, Adrian Peterson rushed for damn near 2,100 yards on it off a torn ACL in his recovery year. And then ever since, it hasn't been that big a deal. So I wonder what is Caden Stearns going to look like? Bo Nix, obviously, because the potential future of the franchise, I do think you can see a good bit from the quarterback position in camp. Russ's talent difference in terms of like physical ability, like arm talent, ability to like throw the ball accurately on time, the ability to like move well, all really stood out from what I was accustomed to seeing at Broncos practices. And those are more physical traits. I think it is harder to read the mental stuff, though you can see some of it. But I think a lot of the questions with Bo Nix are physical, in terms of how high is that ceiling. And so that's why I want to really see him in camp. And the last one here. Didn't think of a fourth. Excuse me, everybody. Let's go Greg Dulcich. Mentioned him briefly. It's another injury well one, but I want to see Greg Dulcich back. I do not like this Broncos tight end room. I think he's far and away, the best of the bunch if healthy. And again, the injuries he suffered aren't serious. It's been a constant, which is why I'm concerned and why I would bet against it myself. But it's not like the patellar tendon. It's like, man, do you ever come back from this? No concerns with that, like a hamstring or even this foot thing. It's more, can he stay healthy? And who knows on that front? Let me catch up on some comments here, and then I'll go on to the next Mount Rushmore quick. We need Stearns and Browning to stay healthy. I fully agree. Or if Stearns is healthy, if this patellar tendon didn't drag him down too much, and then you get a fully healthy year for Baron Browning, I think you get a dramatically different Broncos defense than if those things aren't true. So fully agree. For me, business-wise, PS2 deal depends on the vibe I get on Nix after year one. It's a good point. I see what you're going for here. It's like, do I want to invest that heavily in PS2 if Nix isn't it? And I'm thinking, whoa, I'm going to have to keep building this thing. I don't think so, because I think the timelines would still make sense. Surtain should be good for another 5-6 years. And if Nix doesn't look good after this year, the Broncos are going to have 2 more swings at quarterback in that span, at least. And then I'd argue you're maybe building it the right way. You're building up the surroundings first and then inserting the quarterback into it. Right now, they're kind of throwing Nix into it, and I don't think the surroundings are built up. Like, if Nix was awesome from day one, I don't think it's like the Texans. CJ Stroud's awesome from day one. And with a couple small minor moves, they're immediately like, are they the best team in the AFC? Even if Nix hit the ground running, I think they need, to build up some things around him. Point being, if Nix isn't the guy and you're still searching for the quarterback, I don't think that means, oh my God, we got to blow this up with PS2, because you'd be searching for the pieces around the quarterback. You wouldn't be ready for that high-level contention anyways, and you still have plenty of years left with PS2 being a high-level player, hopefully. So that would be my comment there. No, I'm not. Sorry, I should have kept Paul's full statement here. No, I'm not hating on PS2 or value of his ability, but it's about Denver's big picture going forward. Okay, so I think I captured what he was talking about there. Talking about Dulcich. Okay, let's get 30 minutes. All right. I think it's, oh shoot. And now my phone's dead. I remember 2 of the ones I had left being the all-time Broncos Mount Rushmore, and one that's another themed, lighter, more fun one. So we'll start with that one. The 4 Broncos most likely to provide the team with fireworks this season. You see what I did there? Marvin Mims. I hate to keep mentioning his name, but it's true. Look at the guy. He's so damn explosive. And I think as he's able to become more and more of the offense, the deep stuff with him is going to become more impactful because you can't just sit on it. The gadget stuff is going to become more impactful because you can't just sit on it. And who knows if he becomes that fully well-rounded receiver, but I do think we'll see him be more well-rounded this year than he was last year. So absolutely a fireworks player. Goodness, fireworks. Fireworks player. Victory lap. Don't forget Jaleel. Don't worry, I'm not. I'll throw him number 2 on this list. God, what a jitterbug out of the backfield. Philip Lindsay, I keep bringing up, along with Jaleel McLaughlin. I don't know how you couldn't. You see these guys' vision, running ability. I think Lindsay was more physical for their size, but McLaughlin is a lot more physical than most backs his size. I think Lindsay's just especially exceptional there. And such a good receiver too. He was so deadly in the screen game and just catching these passes from Russ and making magic out of them. They weren't these designed plays. Sometimes they were, but oftentimes they weren't these designed plays where it's like, let's get Jaleel in space and let him work. Oftentimes it's like, there's Jaleel, check down. And he makes magic with it. Like I think of the Bears one where he's got defenders in the backfield with him. And it's like he just hits the Jets. They're right there, and he's going from like a stop. I think he like catches the ball, he turns and is getting ready to run, and there's defenders closing in on him from behind. And it didn't make sense watching it. It still doesn't. But like when I watched the initial live copy, it broke my brain because it's like, how did he pull away from that guy? That guy was like 2 yards away from him and was running, and Jaleel was standing still. But then Jaleel still pulled. How did that happen? And that perfectly captures the type of fireworks I'm talking about with Jaleel. He is going to be a creator. He's a playmaker. It's not there. He makes it there. The play is suffocated. He finds the little tiny morsel of oxygen left and turns it into a raging inferno. That's what Jaleel McLaughlin is, and what I think he can bring to this offense. Darren Sproles is always going to be the ridiculously high floor or high ceiling comp. I think it's achievable. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think he can be like a very, very impactful scat back, satellite back. I think he's a throwback, honestly. I don't think we've seen that many like super impactful satellite backs in recent years. It was a big thing in like the mid 2010s, I want to say. But I think that's exactly what Jaleel is. Love it. Jaleel is more Tatum Bell than Lindsay. I wish I had a good comment on that. I really wish I do, or I did. I haven't seen much Tatum Bell. I know some older iconic Broncos just because their tapes get out there. Like I've seen a lot of the Orange Crush defense. I've seen, even like Craig Morton taking snaps for the Broncos. I've seen the Three Amigos with John Elway. I'm familiar with these groups or like certain Broncos players and how they looked like. Tatum Bell, my familiarity with him was Madden 07. That was my first Madden game. And man, he was a monster. I would draft him just about whenever I could. I think it was like an 86, 88 overall. And he was fantastic. But again, I didn't really watch much of him live, so it's hard for me to say. Hillman with a bit more wiggle. I like that. I think the vision is notably better there with McLaughlin, I'd say. I don't think Hillman's vision was ever all that good. But McLaughlin, to me, I think is really good in that department. What up, Big E, says Victory Lap. What is up, Big E is right. How's everybody doing tonight, says Big E in the comments. Thanks for stopping by, Big E. Said it at the top of the show. I'll say it again, though. Likes, comments, support us so much. It's that YouTube algorithm. The super chats are always like above and beyond. That's literally you giving us your money, which is too generous. You guys have done it before, and I'm very grateful for it. But if you don't, like a free option, if you're signed into a Google account and just want to hit the like or comment the letter A, like that genuinely makes a difference for us. So just thank you. Appreciate the help and support as always. Frankie asking what the logo on the hat is. It is Maxie Minor, the Denver Nuggets mascot. And then instead of holding the pickaxe, he's holding the Larry O'Brien, which I absolutely love. How to deal with a hangover. Drink some more. It says Victory Lap. I don't know where we got on this topic from, but I'll comment on it. I think that's good advice. Hair of the dog that bit you. I think you're kind of just like putting the hangover off. I think it's still going to get you eventually, but it might take a little bit of the edge off of it. There's some reason to that. I'll tell you what the answer is. I want the hangover cure. This is what you do. You go to Lucille's. You're in Colorado. If you're not, shit, sucks to suck. There's 2 or 3 in Denver. There's 1 in Boulder. You go to Lucille's. You get yourself the eggs Eisenhower. You're going to go half and half on the grits and potatoes. Get those grits cheesy, though. That's a necessity. And that's going to hook you up with the biscuit. They got these big old biscuits. That's going to help soak up everything you need to get soaked up. And then on the side, you're going to also get those eggs. Get the eggs however you want. I'm not going to tell you how to live on that front. But then on the side, get that Southern gravy. And then right now you got a biscuits and gravy going on with your eggs Eisenhower. You can get that gravy on everything else. It's like that good, greasy, like hangover meal you need. But it's got the starches in there to soak it all up. It's a huge feast too. So you're going to feel full afterwards. That has brought me and my loved ones back from the dead too many times. Dialysis center. That's a more scientific correct answer from King Ray's. It's the bread absorbs the alcohol. Totally. Oh, totally. But man, also the food's so good. You could just grab any old bread, but you get a Lucille's breakfast along with, and that biscuit. I mean, that biscuit's like a fucking brick, but not dent. Like it's airy, it's fluffy. Man, Lucille's sponsor the show. I'd do it for free. I'm from Cali. I have to visit Denver for a game. Absolutely. Please do. Mile High Stadium, or whatever they call it now, in Power Field. Screw the corporate sponsors, by the way. Always call it Mile High Stadium. Don't let them get their money's worth. Awesome field. Great tailgate scene too, if you know where to go. Shout out to the DNVR people for that. Yeah, come out for a game. There's also a ton of good eats in Denver. I wish we had a few more activities outside of hiking, but the eats are pretty great. Okay, God, let me get back on topic. Mims, McLaughlin, fireworks players. Let me get you another here. Baron Browning, talked about him earlier in the show. God, this guy's awesome. The highlights of his look as good as the highlights of any player on this roster. When he's hitting, and like when he's clicking, I guess is maybe better as a pass rusher. It looks Vaughn-like. It really does. And he's not Von Miller, but the moments, like he's just got these 2 snaps a game that are like, whoa, that was crazy. Those are fireworks in my book. God, those are the 3 obvious ones. Who else do I got? Tim Patrick coming on the scene. Everyone knows Court's going to make some of those downfield big, exciting plays. Tim's going to make them too. I think he's especially going to thrive in the red zone. Let's go there. Brandon Jones, good name also that I just thought of. I say Benito taking the next step this season. I agree. On our breakout players show, he was one of my top picks. I'm a big believer in Benito breaking out this year. I think the growth we saw from him from year 1 to year 2 was something I exceeded my wildest expectations. And it has me very excited for what maybe he could be, especially if he stays on that trajectory. But even if it tails off some, he could be the Broncos dude on the edge. They currently don't have one. If I had to bet, I'd bet Benito's that guy. The run defense stuff's just always going to be a problem there. I don't know how good my mic is. So the run stuff's going to be a problem. I cannot wait until week 2 when Russell Wilson finally earns his money and takes 5 sacks, fumbles the ball 3 times. I'm all for it. That's a game I cannot wait for as well. All right, 45 minutes of preamble. Let's get into what I titled. Goodness gracious, what I titled this show about. Who are the all-time Broncos on the Mount Rushmore? I'm not going to spend a ton of time justifying it because I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to be looking at the comments. We've got a fairly active comment section right now. Tell me where I'm wrong. Truly, I do not think, and these are things where everyone always disagrees on it. I think there's 1, maybe 2 spots that are even debatable. And I don't think many people would argue against them or make a compelling argument against them at least. Okay, so number 1, off the top, it's John Elway. I mean, wins a Super Bowl as a GM, 2 as a player. He's had a huge hand in every single Broncos Super Bowl, as well as several of their Super Bowl appearances. You could label them AFC championships. Just no brainer. The king of Denver, truly. The best athlete in Denver history too. Jokic very well could surpass that. I'll happily acknowledge that. But right now it's still John Elway. So he's number one on that monument with a bullet. Big E weighing in here. He says John Elway, Champ Bailey, Von Miller, Terrell Davis. I don't disagree. I will say not all four of my guys were players. If I was going all four players, there's a very good chance that's like my exact list. Though Manning was really pushing for it. I'll say that. Okay, number 2 option. This is another one I don't think anyone can push back on. Pat Bowlen. Pat Bowlen. I could talk about John Elway. All of the good Broncos years happened during Pat Bowlen's ownership. All of them. I don't think it's merely coincidence either. He came in, bought the team, immediately established the right culture of we're going to win. I'm going to get the hell out of your way. I just demand that we try our best and are competitive and we're making smart decisions. And I'm going to write all the checks to make sure that happens. But, I'm going to enable you guys however I can, but I'm not going to be David Tepper meddling in operations. All-time great owner. It's a travesty. Some of the NFL owners that made it in ahead of him, especially given the context of the situation. Them giving it, if you really look at the resumes, there's not a good case for Jerry Jones over Pat Bowlen. There's not. He had the 3 Super Bowls. Guess who also has 3 Super Bowls? Pat Bowlen. There's not a good case for it. Bowlen also has more conference championships. Anyways, Jerry Jones makes it in over him, and there's really not a good case for it, except he's more famous, and the Dallas Cowboys are more famous. That's the case, and that's maddening because you look at Jerry Jones still running the Cowboys, still actively making bad decisions for them, actively running them, and Pat Bowlen was sidelined with dementia or what was it, Alzheimer's at this point. And it was known, it's the nature of Alzheimer's, unfortunately, was known that he was dealing with this serious illness and his days were numbered. And the NFL decided to get Jerry Jones in before Pat Bowlen. And so you know what happens? Pat Bowlen never gets to see himself in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure you can hear it. I am still so mad about that. It's one of the more, that's the worst crime the Hall of Fame's ever done. Number 2 would be letting Eli in. Eli Manning. Oof, don't let that guy who had one top 10 quarterbacking season his whole fucking life be in the Hall of Fame. Make a mockery of the institution. Okay. Whew. Let me breathe. Calm down. Back to good Broncos. Bowlen's number 2. We've got some comments weighing in here. TD they're pushing for. Not on my list. I hate to. TD is my all-time favorite NFL player. Didn't make the list. I hate to say it. Tebow, you know what? Did not make the list. Honestly, I didn't consider him week's Friday show. The memories us as Broncos fans got from him, I think gives Tebow a pretty solid case. John Elway, Peyton Manning, Jason Elam, Mike Shanahan, and Pat Bowlen. Also, Bailey, Miller, and Davis are acceptable. I'm assuming that's Terrell Davis. You got 5 there, Mr. Orange. I'm going to need you to trim 1. Though you do have 3 of my 4. So let's go into that third one right here. Mike Shanahan changed the face of the NFL while being the head coach of the Denver Broncos. That's a nice little bonus. Coached the team to 2 Super Bowls. That's a nice bonus. No, never mind, not another conference championship. But the 2 Super Bowl wins, good feather in his cap. I believe he's the winningest coach in franchise history. Certainly the best coach in franchise history. Did get messy towards the end of the run. But part of this, I was thinking who defined eras? And I don't have anyone from the Orange Crush. It was going to be Gradishar. But it ultimately didn't end up making it. I thought about Pat Bowlen, and I'm like, oh my God, if I'm doing non-players, Bowlen's got to be in. Gradishar, you're out. Bailey was also in consideration for that spot. But who defines eras? When John Elway wasn't in Denver, it was Mike Shanahan defining it, whether that be the quarterback. We see how Kyle Shanahan props up these quarterbacks now. Same thing happening in Denver in the early aughts, whether it be the running backs. We talked about Tatum Bell earlier. He was like the seventh one of those guys that came in and had a great year. So yeah, Mike Shanahan to me also such a iconic Broncos figure. John Elway, Peyton Manning, Von Miller, Floyd Little, Jason Elam as players only. I love Jason Elam getting some love. All-time leading scorer, was around for a lot of Broncos success. I like it. Tebow Mania, that was a wild season. Blah, blah. Jerry Jones' son took over the GM spot for the Cowboys. Not to my knowledge. He still has let me see this. I thought this offseason. Yeah, no, he's still GM from what I can find. Stephen Jones is much more hands-on than he used to be. Here's a crazy stat that I recently heard. If Jerry Jones were to step down, and this is how I kind of thought in the back of my head that Jerry Jones was still GM. Looked it up, he is. But if Jerry Jones were to step down today or lose his GM role in some other way, Stephen Jones would be the second oldest GM in the league. Nuts. Doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, we talked about Mike Shanahan. That was my 3. Number 4 here. Okay, this is the one that I think there might be some pushback on. But I stand by it. Von Miller, by far best player of the post-Manning era. They do not have a Super Bowl without John Elway, if not for Von Miller. Without John Elway quarterbacking them, without Von Miller. Von Miller, so crucial to that year, so crucial to winning that game, of course. Deserved the Super Bowl MVP. The people that have commented players only versions, Terrell Davis has been included in almost every single one of them, along with John Elway, Von Miller. You look at the 3 Broncos to win Super Bowl MVPs: TD, John Elway, Von Miller. I think that's a damn good start for your Broncos Mount Rushmore. And I think he defines this era even more so than Peyton, because Peyton was only here for 4 years and only 3 good ones. Von gave you 7 elite seasons, 8 elite seasons. Was here for a decade plus. So you mean the sheriff. Shout out to the sheriff. And Mike Shanahan has 60 more wins over Bill Coward as well, and he's in the Hall of Fame, but oh my God. I don't want to, I'll go off on that in a second too. But yeah, Von Miller, absolutely my 4th pick here. Also of my era, there's probably some guys that were pre-2000, born in 99 here. Some guys that were pre-2000 probably got short end of the stick. Let me know in the comments why I'm wrong, but I think that top 4 is pretty dang good. Again, John Elway, Mike Shanahan, Von Miller, Pat Bowlen. Who's knocking that top 4 in terms of iconic Broncos? But here, Big E Bronco commenting about why Mike Shanahan should be in the Hall of Fame. It has more wins than Bill Cowher. But he says it's not even the NFL Hall of Fame anymore. It's the Steelers and Cowboys Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of fucking truth to that. If you look into it, there is a lot of truth to that. So I do think, anyway, Mike Shanahan should be it. Absolutely. He's been a finalist recently, but so few coaches have impacted the game. Throughout NFL history have impacted the game to the degree that Mike Shanahan has. And then you factor in the 2 Super Bowls. You check both those boxes. How are you not in the Hall of Fame? It's an embarrassment to me, not as bad as the Pat Bowlen one, because Mike Shanahan's still alive. Now, if they keep dragging this out and Mike Shanahan never gets to see himself in the Hall of Fame, I'm going to be equally annoyed. But anyways, but Peyton brought 4 AFC championships, 2 Super Bowls, and Super Bowl 50 in 4 years. I don't think it was 4 AFC championship games, right? Because he Then they definitely the Colts won in 2014 was the divisional round, and then 2012 was also, and I think they might have been the best team in the AFC both those years. Though 2014 Peyton started to crater. I think you could argue he's the reason they were eliminated in 2014, frankly. But yeah, it's right. I mean, that window was so elite, and I'm not trying to knock, but like I said, even when I was considering Mike Shanahan and not making this a players only list, Peyton Manning was one of my very last cuts. He's right up there. I fully agree. An iconic player, brought the Broncos some of their very best years. Bonus points for clearly being more invested in Denver and Denver's teams than Indianapolis and Indianapolis teams. That always makes me feel good. But I do think he's just off, mainly for longevity in Denver, only getting the 4 seasons and the 3 good ones. All right, that does it. My throat is done. It was an exciting 4-year span. I envy it every day to this day. Pre-2011, I was like, man, it'd be so cool if the Broncos were always getting talked about on these shows, but they're just bad, so they never get talked about on ESPN. And then that changed with Tebow, and then Manning came in, and it's like, we're always getting talked about. This is so fun. And decade of misery, man. Hopefully Bo Nix can change that. We'll be back Monday. I think we're going to be reviewing or previewing another position, rather. I think this time we're doing offensive line. Yeah, I've got some articles coming out on the website previewing all sorts of different positions. Make sure to check those out. And until next time, everybody, go Broncos.